I ask that you would please keep your comments and presentations on a professional level dealing with the facts that are important for this governing body to make our decisions. We will not accept comments, or the chair will not accept comments that are deemed to be of a personal attack on any individual or group of individuals. We receive a warning from the chair, and if you deviate from that, a second deviation, we will discontinue your conversation by turning your microphone off. Only one person speaking at a time. Please do not applaud or react to speakers, speak from the audience, cheer, or carry on conversations, or be disruptive when we're hearing the information. I remind you that we're only required to take public comments on zoning matters. And if you have any electronic device, a cell phone, iPad, or the like, I ask that you would please put those in silent mode or turn those off until after the meeting is completed. Now, this is how the agenda will take place. It'll be handled as the following. The committee chairperson will read the agenda item. Then that person or applicant will come and make his or her presentation. We may ask additional questions if we did not ask last week, or if you have new information, we'll be possibly ask questions about that. After that, the committee chairperson will ask for comments or statements in favor or opposition of the agenda item. And this is the time where if you did not have an opportunity to speak last week, you can come forward, but it's only with new information. Each person has 5 minutes. We have 20 minutes for those in approval or those in favor of the item, and 20 minutes for those in opposition. And each person has 5 minutes to speak. Prior to coming to the podium, there are cards that you can pick up and fill out with your name and address. They're outside on the desk. Please bring those forward and give those to our city clerk, Ms. Vicki Acker, to my right in the beautiful white blouse, and give us your name and address for the record. Each person has one opportunity to speak. This is not a question and answer or debate format. We're just here to hear the information, deliberate, and make our decision. If you have anything that's printed, I would ask that you would please give that to the city clerk. Ms. Acker will make copies and distribute those copies to myself and council members. Now we will move forward with the agenda. It's going to go pretty fast. If you'd like to have a paper agenda, there are some outside on the desk. If not, you can follow us on the screen. Okay, we'll move down to announcements and presentations. We don't have any. Our next agenda item is minutes for approval. I will open the floor for to approve the minutes of the committee meetings for executive session and legislative work sessions of March 3rd, 2022, and the committee meeting, executive session, and regular meeting of March 7th, 2022. I'll open the floor for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Thank you. Ms. Acker, did you get? Councilman Adams and Councilman Davis the second. Is that correct? Okay, it's been properly moved and second to approve the minutes as presented. Do we see any corrections or concerns from council members? All those in favor of approving the minutes? If not, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The minutes are approved as presented. I'll move on to the consent agenda. I'll open the floor for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Estes. I have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. It's been properly moved and second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Do we have any questions or comments from council members? I don't see any. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The consent agenda is approved as presented. We'll move on then to Economic Development Committee, and that's chaired by Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Terry Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business at this time under the Economic Development Committee.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Finance Committee, chaired by Councilmember Mark Adams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, one item tonight under Finance.
Yes, sir.
Consider a final bond ordinance approving issuance of bonds for Jesse Davis Park, Ms. Karen Callen and Mr. Bill Camp. Ms. Callen?
Yes, sir. Karen Callen, Finance Director, 6695 Church Street. Tonight, we do have Bill Camp here with Raymond James, he will go over the pricing summary. And then we have Ben Brooks with Smith, Gambrell, and Russell, and he'll just talk briefly about the bond purchase agreement and the resolution. And then if Ms. Woodward has anything, or Mr. Dodson, to add to that. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I think that Ms. Callen gave y'all an electronic copy of this pricing book.
Yes, sir.
good to be with y'all again. It's been about 6 months ago to the day, almost. And if you look at page 2, you can see things have changed some. Rates have come up a little bit. We talked about that at your work session meetings several months ago. Sure enough, rates have come up a little bit. Page 3, do not despair. A lot of that rate movement has occurred on the short end of the curve. If you look at where the red curve, today's market, and the dark curve are, short-term rates have come up more relative to the long end of the curve. And if you recall, your voters approved you issuing bonds that stretch out over a 25-year period of time. So historically, we're still in pretty low interest rate environment. Page 4, your AA rating by Standard & Poor's has been affirmed. Not a surprise. It's a wonderful rating, and every time you go back into the market, they review that. Our bond yield, that's the average rate, and each one of those maturities is 2.62%. And our all-in cost, when you take the cost of issuance and add it all in, it's about a 321. Again, the bonds will be paid back, principal from 24 through 47. This is in accordance with what the voters approved you to issue for the park project. Page 5, a lot of info on this page, but your yields are really kind of the most important information there. 155 and 24 out to 293 maturing in 47. Again, the average of those yields is 2.62%. Page 6, this is a comparison of how your bonds, how we priced your bonds versus the AAA scale today. And this is similar, just a different market, but these are similar spreads to what the Conference Center Authority bonds priced 6 months ago. We're about plus 30, plus 35 in the short-term range, and our spreads widen out for 2 reasons: risk over time, and then also we priced a good deal of 4% coupons, and that allows us to get the proceeds that you need, but also keep our interest expense lower, which I'll address in a little bit. Page 7, we sized this bond issue. Again, your voters approved. You have the right to issue up to $25 million of bonds. So you're able to do all the things that you need to with a smaller bond issue, $22,485,000, okay? And after capitalized interest and costs, you're going to have $24,900,000 deposited to your construction fund. Page 8, one of the reasons that we priced lower coupons 4s in the callable maturities is to try to keep our annual debt service down below or right around $1.5 million. That was kind of always our bogey to shoot for. And on page 8, you'll see what those future debt service payments are. The reason that's important is you set your millage every year, and we want to have a fixed number that's easily achieved. Page 9, we're going to move pretty rapidly to close your bond issue on April the 12th. And there's a lot of documents that'll be adopted. If you're pleased with the pricing, a lot of documents to be adopted by this city council tonight and executed. And Mr. Brooks with Smith, Gambrell, and Russell, who's your bond lawyer, he allows us to sell these bonds on a tax-exempt basis. He's here tonight, and I don't want to steal his thunder. I'll let him speak to the legal matters. And number one, thank you for letting us do this for you again. And I hope that if you have any questions, I'm hopeful to be able to answer them.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Come forward.
Good evening. My name is Ben Brooks. I'm a bond attorney with Smith, Gambrell, and Russell, and serving as bond counsel for this issuance. You've heard Mr. Camp talk about the financial aspects, so I'll just touch briefly on some of the legal aspects. Of course, these bonds were approved by the voters at the November 2nd referendum, and tonight what you have in front of you is a final bond ordinance which lays out the pricing terms that Mr. Camp has gone over. And also, you're being asked to approve a bond purchase agreement with Raymond James, Mr. Camp's firm, to purchase the bonds. The bond ordinance does a couple of things. It outlines the basic terms of the bonds, the interest rates, the amount of principal payable over time, and it also imposes and provides for the imposition of taxes to back these bonds. These bonds are general obligation bonds of the city and are backed by the full faith and credit of the city, so the bond ordinance accomplishes that as well. These bonds are being issued on a tax-exempt basis because this is a good governmental project for parks and recreation, so you're getting the benefit of a lower rate than you would have gotten if you had been selling these bonds on a taxable basis. So those are the two documents that you have in front of you tonight. These bonds have already gone through the judicial validation process. Ms. Woodward helped with that process, so that is already done, and that's what allows us to move fairly quickly towards closing on April 12th. And so the bonds will close and fund on April 12th. So the documents that you have in front of you, from my perspective, are in good form and provide for the terms that Mr. Camp has outlined. I'm glad as well to answer any questions that you all might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Questions, comments? Anyone? I know it's very Greek to a lot of us. I feel like we're in good hands. Ms. Callen's smiling like she can't wait to get this deal finished. And I'm sure all of us are proud to be able to get started on that, the improvements. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, we're going to move right along then. I'll make a motion that we approve this item for the final bond ordinance approval, item 22-101.
Thank you so much. Ooh, that was a hearty second. I didn't get a chance to get it out. Well, thank you so much. It's been, we have some properly moved by the chair, Councilman Adams, and I know you understand with your finance background, for item 22-101, and second by Councilmember Watts to approve this item. Do we have any additional comments or questions from council members? We're smiling and happy that we're able to do the will of the people as they approve this bond.
At 2.62%.
At 2.26%. Thank you so much. So it's been properly moved in second. We don't have any other comments. All those in favor of approving this item, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. 22-101 is unanimously approved.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's all that we have tonight under finance.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Callen and Mr. Camp and Mr. Brooks. We appreciate it. We'll move on then to the next committee, which is Housing and Community Affairs Committee, chaired by Councilmember Dr. LaShawn Burdanley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business tonight.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Burdanley.
You're welcome, Madam Mayor.
Legislative and Intergovernmental Committee, chaired by Councilmember Samuel Davis.
At this time, no business tonight, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilman Davis. Personnel and Organization Committee, chaired by Councilmember Chris Watts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business tonight in Personnel and Organization.
Thank you so much, Coach. We'll move on then to Planning and Development Committee, that's chaired by Councilmember Mark Adams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have two items tonight under Planning and Development, and I'm going to take the liberty of swapping the order of those.
Okay?
I understand that our Chief of Police, we need him under item B for just a moment, but he has a
Yes,
higher
sir.
calling tonight, and we want to make sure that he can make that. So I'm
Yes,
going to
sir.
start with item B, that is hold a public hearing and consider a request for a change in zoning from PUD, Planned Unit Development, to PRD, Planned Residential Development, for 109 acres on Riverside Parkway, land lot 171, District 1, Section 5, Parcel 1, ID number 01710150001, application by Avila Development LLC, care of Julie Sellers. Ms. Shayla Reed, come and talk with us.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
evening.
I'm Shayla Reed, the Community Development Director, located at 6701 Church Street. On last week, we discussed this particular item. There were concerns and questions relative to staff's recommendations for cameras. So I remain present for those questions, as well as partnering with our chief to answer those questions.
Okay. Madam Mayor, did you have questions or comments? If so, go ahead.
I did. I know the chief is going to give us, the city manager is preparing a document for me with, that gives us all the places, the departments that have security and that do not have security provided. And so there was a twofold question. I know that your recommendation to help us with flock cameras and security in our community was to have cameras maybe at the entrance. So that was the one issue, was to have cameras for security at the entrance. And then the other one was a long-term goal that I talked about when I attended the U.S. Mayor's Conference, with Ring cameras that would connect to the police department. And therefore, we would have to hire another person to kind of watch the cameras and all of that. So if you could address and just clear it up, I don't know if I'm the only person who had questions, but.
Yes, ma'am. I sent this information to the city manager, and I'm thinking it was about 14 or 15
Yes, sir.
apartment complexes, and about half of them did have a camera system.
Yes, sir.
So what I started doing, because I see the type crimes that we have occurring here in the city, is that when we see businesses or warehouses or apartment complexes coming in, one of the recommendations that I make is that they have a camera system. Because we found out that this camera system is sort of level the playing field. If you aware of like Brown Street Apartments, commonly known as the Honey Hole. Well, we was running over there all the time until they put cameras up. When they put cameras up at the corners of the building, they put signs up that that the area is being monitored, we don't run over there half as much. If you were looking in the paper the other day, we just arrested these men that broke into Gables. You know, they were wearing masks and all of that, but Gables had cameras. So no matter if they're masked up or whatever, we're still able to have a starting point to start an investigation. With no cameras, you don't have a starting point anywhere to start. Just this past weekend, we had a robbery, assault robbery, and these two guys were living over in Rocky Ridge. So we go to the Rocky Ridge and we find out where they're living, and they have body armor, piercing rounds. They have AK-47s, and
Wow.
and they have that's their body armor. So when we started asking the neighbors about, hey, did you hear these guys shooting guns and everything? And the old lady said, yeah, they shoot them all the time. Wow. But I tell Miss Reed, cameras, because it gives us a starting point to do an investigation. Also, it should serve notice to the people moving in that they have some type of security. Now, my thing to Miss Reed was that we have the flock cameras, because we have flock cameras. I think we have we're going to get 10 more. So we got about 20, maybe going up to like 30 flock cameras. But the situation on the homicide out there, where we had the homicide with the young guy, if we had enough flock cameras, those businesses had a flock camera, we probably could have caught the car coming out. Now you say, okay, well, flock cameras, that catch everybody coming out. But when you're talking about apartments, you have people that live inside the apartment that's doing government, they're walking around. So if you got cameras, you can catch them, because everybody's not leaving out in a vehicle. So it's just a layered system of security, that if they're going to build some apartments, they place the cameras in on the corner of the building, just like a lot of these other apartments have.
Yes, sir. So it wouldn't be an impediment on a violation of someone's privacy?
You know, you
That
have
was one of the
privacy in your
concerns.
apartment. When you come outside your apartment and you out in the open, so the world can see you, you lose your expectation and right of privacy.
Okay.
So no, we ain't trying to, you know, We used to have over here at Columbia Gardens apartments. They don't have cameras. We had a problem with guys going in the breezeways, selling drugs. And you know, I was advised that the property manager and the people that coming in, they long range. They don't build them and leave like some people.
Yes, sir.
But my thing is to keep the citizens of this community safe. And, you know, Captain back there, he's in charge of the patrol division, and he could tell you, you know, because the little lady asked me, said, well, the people come in and they have masks on. Well, that's a starting point for an investigation. Because we take that mask and we go around to all the other agencies in the area and we start looking for clothing. It still gives us a starting point. But we had a guy over in this apartment, Dura Lee. The guy was dead in the car for like, was it 2 days? 2 days. He in the car, people walking around.
Wow.
Just finally somebody said, this guy just been sitting there in the car running. And we was able to come back and put everything together because that's what we do. But if we had cameras on the building, it'll show the assault that happened inside the complex and all this kind of thing. So that's what we trying to get away and make sure that our people are safe. That's bottom line. That's what I'm looking at.
Yes, sir, that's it. That's all I had. And the long-term one for ring cameras is a whole nother conversation we'll have at
That's a
our
whole
workshop.
nother, right, that's
Yes, sir.
another conversation that we can have. And as you all can remember, when the lady, the new solicitor was running for solicitor, and she went up there and to some apartments, she removed one guy's political sign and put hers down. See, that's what those cameras do. Y'all remember that?
We do.
So see, those little nuances that we see through our investigation with police department, that's what we have to look for.
Yes.
To make sure our citizens are safe.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chief.
Someone else? Yes, Mr. Estes, go ahead. We'll come down the line.
I have a question, a couple of questions, actually. I mean, is this going to be standard policy moving forward, that this is going to be a request on every development coming through?
So in communication with Chief, he's had ongoing concerns that he's wanting to see where the multifamily and commercial are having these to make it uniform across the board.
Okay. And then the other question is the vagueness of the recommendation of where applicable. Is there some standard to, give some guidance to us and to developers and so forth on exactly what that means? Because that's awfully vague.
Mr. Estes?
Okay.
Go ahead, Chief.
And I'll talk to Ms. Reed. The thing we want to cover is the parking lots. We want to make sure the entrance and exit points in the parking, let me put my glasses on.
I'm right
She
there
got it
with
right
you.
here. What you got? Number 4, security cameras to be installed and fully angled for each parking lot, and flock cameras to be installed at entrances and exit points of the development. So
Okay,
what-
we don't have that in our,
Okay, she has it right here, the attorney.
It would be my assumption those issues would be addressed at the time the development plan is
well, that
formatted.
was going to be the next question. I thought we had had discussions previously where stipulations on zoning were more appropriate at the development plan stage. Am I remembering incorrectly, or?
Well, I think what you'll have here is a requirement for cameras, but the number of cameras and the placement, it's
The
very hard.
specifics and the details.
You can't
Gotcha.
tell now without seeing a development plan, so I don't
Okay.
see there's any way for you to specify where they'll be at this point.
Okay, all right, I gotcha.
Is that all?
That's all for now, yeah. I'd love to hear from
Okay.
the applicant after council speaks.
Yes, Mr. Davis, go ahead.
Yes, I just have a small correction for the chief. The door hangers was a probate judge, not the DA.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Not the solicitor, the probate judge.
Yeah, I want to call out any names, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I didn't, did I?
for correction. Thank you.
Ms. Burdanley, did you have a question or comment?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to refer back to a concern that the developer had expressed at the last meeting regarding and the mayor mentioned it earlier about privacy. Her concern was that if the camera was angled such that you could see into an apartment when the door was open. So I would pose that question to our council. Is that an issue that we should be concerned about?
I don't think so. I'm unaware of any case where anybody's been sued because there was a camera angled into a door. I think the odds of that are pretty remote.
Okay.
I likewise think cameras can be placed in such a way that they capture mostly the parking lot. I don't see that as a major concern.
Okay. I wanted to run that by just to make sure that you felt comfortable with it. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Coach Watts.
I remember last week, one of our citizens that came forward said something about the cameras, and also, she mentioned that that could be part of the lease, as an acknowledgement that when you rent an apartment there, there are cameras in the parking lot, and, it might capture your front door potentially, that, as long as they know ahead of time. And also, I like the chief's idea in thinking here, and, chief's always thinking about how to solve the next crime, so I'm all for it. It's not going to necessarily prevent crime unless it's a deterrent when they see that they're under surveillance.
Well, as a general rule, there's no expectation of privacy in a public area
Right.
such as a parking lot, an entrance gate, or anything else,
Right. And so I don't have a problem with that at all. And also, I know we haven't talked about it, but I'm not too sure about the fence. I don't think that's practical. I don't see the point in it, but that's just my opinion.
Let's get to the fence once we finish with the chiefs, any chiefs comments, so we can get him on the road.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any Yes, go ahead, Madam Mayor.
Very quickly, the coach reminded me, I apologize, Mr. Chairman, about the storage portion of the cameras as well, is that it could be, and Mrs. Macias brought that to our attention, that maybe the information can be placed in the cloud, because there was a time frame that the developer or the applicant said that it tapes over itself after 12 or 14 hours, or however, 48 hours, or whatever time frame. And so possibly that information can be stored in the cloud, and you can go back and look. And so
Yes.
if a crime or something does occur, then we'll have an opportunity to get the information.
Right, and what we usually do is go back and get a subpoena and get the information, because they have the information back at their headquarters somewhere at the main office, and then they have to burn it. So we know that process because we go through that process all the time.
Okay.
With commercial and with these apartments now that's coming online and putting cameras in their apartments.
Yes, sir.
Complexes, so,
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So Chief, I understand then from your standpoint, you would like to see flock cameras, and you'd like to see cameras at the entrance and exit points so that you could read tags, and then in the public areas where there could be some, did you call it devilment going on, I believe?
Might be some shenanigans going on.
Shenanigans going on.
Because we got to look at it like this. You might have a young lady or person that want to take their trash out at 2 or 3 in the morning, and we done had it over there at Crestmark. So they go and take their trash out. Crestmark don't have cameras, and then they get accosted on the way. So we go over there and we try to put that whole crime scene together, and we tell them all the time, why don't you all get some cameras? Well, yeah, it's dark, but the greatness of investigation is that you take that person, that figure there, because they're not just committing crimes here, they're gonna commit crimes in other areas. So when we go to these meetings, we take this picture, and they may have committed crimes in Atlanta or DeKalb or somewhere else. We're like, oh, now we're moving forward. I mean, that's how we did the burglary in the Gables. Those guys was covered up. They went to the side of the building with a truck, but we kept working.
So it's a basis for you to begin your investigation, and mainly it's not for, I could see how it could benefit the residents there as that they're being protected by them, but also it helps to create a starting point for crime investigation.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. You're dismissed.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Councilman.
Chief. Appreciate what you
Thanks,
do.
Chief.
How long have you waited to say that?
He's dismissed to that higher calling. You
Captain-
better be back here tomorrow morning, though, now. Come on.
Captain Cannon, you coming? You gonna relay?
So, Ms. Reed, there was also
We want you to-
the concern or the question I know that had been discussed about the fencing. And I know that the chief had desired to have fencing around the property. And of course, we know and realize that this piece of property is 100-plus acres, and a lot of it is backing up to natural areas. Am I correct there? We don't see a development plan yet, but if you look at the lengths of the driveways and the remoteness of the two separations of buildings in order to get that many units on that size property with the topo the way it is, I think I understand his desire for fencing, and he was going to request that, I believe, on all future apartment complexes. Now that, you have to put into reason what you're expecting when you're looking at fencing 100 acres. So, is that his intention, or is that what he has asked for?
No, that's accurate. That's correct.
Okay. There were questions or comments about fencing. Coach, did you have a question about it, or you already made your comment?
I pretty much made my comment. I'm not, I think it's a lot to ask that big of a piece of property. Plus, it's right next to a natural area. It's not in a necessarily high crime area. The cameras are going to take care of some of that. And, I don't see the fencing keeping wildlife out. You're not going to keep wildlife out. And it's right there on the creek. So I like the idea. If I was living there, I would rather have it open, to be honest with you. I've got a gate at the entrance. That's all I think we need.
I'd find it hard to believe that you're going to have someone committing a crime from the backside of that property and traveling through the woods to get to commit a crime inside and coming through all of that natural area to do it. So if the fence is to keep people out, it would probably do a good job, but I don't know that we would want to require that. That's just my comment. I'll open the floor. Mr. Estes.
I agree with everything that you and Councilman Watts have said. I think the idea, in theory, is fine, but particularly on this project, I think it's very impractical with the topography and the size of the parcel. I can't even imagine how it could be done, nor how much it would cost. And I just think that cameras, I think, could be dealt with, but the fencing, I think, is just overkill.
Other
That's all.
comments? Moving along. Yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I agree with what my colleagues have said, and I think it's unrealistic to have a fence around there would be unreasonable for this particular project, not stating, carte blanche, just moving forward, but aesthetically as well. I'm not certain how that would look. I know the developer did say the type of fence, a privacy fence, it would probably look like it was a place that you would be incarcerated, so we wouldn't want to have that. And as well as, I know a citizen talked about children going out to the creek. I think we just would have to kind of watch our kids in that regard. Okay, thank you.
So if we covered the items that were mentioned, I want to open the floor and make sure that we allow citizens to make comments and that we hear from the applicant if there's any new information. So we'll have the applicant come forward. And then, Ms. Sellers, if you would identify yourself, please, and we'll hear any additional new information you have, and then we'll go to this public part of it. Go ahead.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Councilman Adams. Julie Sellers, 1776 Peachtree Street in Atlanta, 30307. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Avila. Wanted to just briefly address a couple of points. On Friday, I received, and I think I made an assumption that might have been incorrect, but I received some conditions from Ms. Reed. And so my assumption was those had been provided to you all. I think it's what Ms. Woodward has in the ordinance, the conditions being slightly different than what was presented to you on Thursday and in the staff report. So just to make sure that we're all on the same page. The tree buffer is to remain, maximum density shall not exceed 10 units per gross acre. Flock cameras to be installed at entrances and exit points of the development. Security cameras to be installed and fully angled for each parking lot. And then the last being, site shall have a fence installed around the periphery of the property. And we are here tonight asking for your approval of the application that included one variance without the fence condition. We've heard a lot of conversation tonight. You heard concerns that we raised as it relates to security. I can wear my legal hat and say, you know, when we look at zoning conditions, trying to address the change in zoning, and that's really typically where we see the zoning conditions. Tonight, it sounded like, and through this, a lot of policy considerations. So I hope that this is something that the city is looking at on a holistic approach and not just singling out one development with these new requirements and really looking at what the city's goal and intent. I think we're all aligned. I certainly know Avila, certainly security and safety. We are all living in a day and age. I had a murder that happened 3 blocks from my home. I really recognize the unsettling times and the difficulty that our law enforcement have, and certainly want to be good partners with the city. Just want to make sure that as we're making decisions that we're looking at it holistically and not parsing out. So, we're here tonight not asking for a whole lot of changes. We don't want the fencing, and we do hope that looking at this, that it's not on a going forward basis. If this is the thought from the city leadership, that cameras, I do think it's beneficial to new businesses coming in if commercial and office and single-family homes and all of these communities are going to be requested to install cameras, that having a policy in place will probably help facilitate a good decision-making from the city, as well as expectations for new developments moving forward. So we're happy to answer any questions. Again, appreciate the understanding. Fencing 109 acres, not feasible, and certainly would not achieve the development that we're looking for, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Ms. Sellers. I think you would see that from the conversation that we've had, that it is something that we are looking at holistically, and it's not in any way singling out any one development. You all just happened to come in, I think, with your request right after the chief mentioned that he was going to begin requesting this on all developments. And so, and they would all have to be looked at individually as to the feasibility of what we've just discussed tonight. So I hope that you don't feel as though that you're being singled out in any way. No, you just happen to be number one.
Well, I guess there's some comfort in being first.
There you are. So we'll open the floor. Madam Mayor, it looks as though you may have a question for the applicant.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Not so much as a question, but just a response or a comment. I concur with what Councilman Adams has said, the chair. We are not singling you out in particular. This is a broader conversation, and you're the trailblazers at this time to have gotten the shiny penny. But as you've heard, have brought the conversation up with the senior staff and the elected body and the chief about even Ring cameras from a conference that I attended that's going on in Chicago, Washington, D.C., where they have these grants and citizens who have Ring cameras to even help to purchase Ring cameras for all of the citizens in particular areas. And so I'm going to Louisiana next week to talk about some of these same issues at Tulane College about development. So it isn't just you, it's a broader conversation that we'll be able to set policy and try to move forward. So we apologize that you are the trailblazers in this situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment or any other question for the applicant? Yes, Ms. Destis.
Ms. Sellers, just so I'm clear on Avila's response to these stipulations, the fencing is the main issue. from your perspective.
That's correct.
But cameras, you can figure out a way to make that work.
We'll figure out a way to make it work, and certainly, the interest, and we have really appreciated working with the community. We did have, I was thrilled to see that actually a resident took time to email you all. I hope you saw it in the agenda packet, supporting this. That we didn't ask them to do that, and quite frankly, didn't know it was in there until seeing the application packet. So we'd like to, to move forward, and we'll, get the cameras installed.
Okay, thank you.
Others? Anyone else? Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I don't think so. Thank
Okay.
you.
Are there anyone here tonight that would like to speak either for or against the application? This being a public hearing, we need to give that opportunity. I don't see anyone moving toward the microphone, so we will close that portion of the public hearing then. And I will ask our city attorney, Ms. Woodward, to help me with the motion. I'm going to make a motion that we approve the zoning on item number 22-060 with a condition concerning the flock cameras and security cameras, but leaving out the fencing requirement. Is that clear enough? Do we need to, can we scratch that from the notes that Ms. Reed had sent out and take that
Yes, we
out?
can scratch that. So
Okay.
it will just be the four conditions. Tree buffers to remain, maximum density shall not exceed 10 units per gross acre. Flock cameras to be installed at entrances and exit points of the development, and security cameras to be installed and fully angled for each parking lot.
That is my motion. Thank you,
Second.
Ms. Woodward.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and second, moved by the chair, Councilman Adams, and second by Councilmember Estes to approve item 22-060 with the stipulations as read by our city attorney, Ms. Woodward. Do we have any, or staff attorney, do we have any other comments or questions from council members? Not seeing any. All those in favor of approving this item, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. 22-060 was unanimously approved.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
all. I appreciate you allowing me the leeway to get the chief out of here and on to another engagement. So I'll go back now to item A, hold a public hearing and consider a change in zoning from GC General Commercial Zone property to LI Light Industrial for 64.68 acres at 9148 Georgia Highway 5, land lot 161, 162, 192. District 2, Section 5, Parcel 17, parcel number ID 01610250017. Application by Michael S. Irby, care of Taylor and Mathis Incorporated. Ms. Reed.
Thank you. Everything remains the same as last week. We are asking for this item to go back to the Planning Commission for June 7, 2022. Thank you.
Ms. Reed, can you give us information, just a little more as far as our people that may be watching online or listening as to the reason for that request, please?
Absolutely. This item is going before the state now for a development for a DRI, which is a development of regional impact. The state restricts for us to have any action taking place on this until they give a recommendation or response. So at that time, we have asked the applicant to give us an idea of when that will be completed. They're projecting for it to be completed in May. Therefore, we're asking for the Planning Commission meeting to be the next action held on that, which will be on June 7th.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I
Yes, sir.
appreciate that. Just want to make sure that our audience realizes this is not, and definitely not something we're attempting to do to let's say, sidestep or to put off the public from having input, but the input that you would need to have would need to be then at a public hearing, which would then be relative to when we'll actually take action. So I would then assume, Ms. Woodward, it would be proper for me to say that we'll take no action on this item, or do I need to make a motion to remand it back to the Planning Commission?
Please make a motion to
Okay.
remand. Thank
Okay.
you.
Questions or comments before I do?
I have a request.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Miller.
Thank you very much. I would like to request, if it's not too much trouble, of staff to please look into this particular property to see if this is not the development that we move forward with, what would be a proper use of this development, the way it is properly zoned in accordance with our zoning map at this time.
Yes, ma'am. I'll ensure that it's added to the Planning Commission's packet as well as yours moving forward.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's a great point, Ms. Miller. We would want the public to know during this time what, as the property is zoned now, how it could be used as it is presently zoned. Thank you, Ms. Reed.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll make a motion then that we do not take action as far as a change in zoning, but that my motion will be that we would remand this item back to the Planning Commission upon such time as the DRI has been completed.
Thank you. There's a motion to remand this item back, to take no action, but to remand this item back to the Planning Commission.
Second.
Thank you. Do you have any other comments or questions? Not hearing any. All those in favor of taking no action, do we do approval for remanding it back to the commission? Is that correct?
That is correct.
It's very clumsy. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. 22-062 is remanded back to the Planning Commission for June 7th, 2022.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's all
welcome.
that we have tonight under Planning and Development.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Reed, and our staff attorney. We'll move on then to the next committee, which is Public Improvement and Beautification Committee, chaired by Councilmember Nicole Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business this evening.
Thank you, ma'am. Public Relations Committee, chaired by Councilmember Howard Estes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. PR Committee has no business this evening.
Thank you, sir. Public Safety, chaired by Councilmember Samuel Davis.
At this time, no items at this time, business. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Thank you, Councilman Davis. Recreation, Culture, and Tourism Committee, chaired by Councilmember Chris Watts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business tonight in Recreation, Culture, and Tourism.
Thank you, sir. Technology Committee, chaired by Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Terry Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business at this time in the Technology Committee.
Thank you, sir. Transportation Committee, chaired by Councilmember Dr. LaShawn Burdanley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business under transportation.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
All righty. Other business, I know we do have one item that was in the consent agenda, and just for clarity, Councilmember Miller do you mind taking that item to address it?
I'll turn this on. I had received a couple of questions in regards to an item that was actually on our consent agenda. And it was to amend our ordinance regarding parks.
Yes, ma'am.
And I believe that some of our residents were questioning just where they can actually play ball and if they can still bring pups and such as that. So, Mr. Bass, if you don't mind talking to us a little bit about that.
Yes, ma'am. Chris Bass, 8830 Gurley Road.
Parks Director, you can.
Parks and Recreation Director, yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay.
Excuse my voice, I have some sinus issues today.
I understand.
But just to clarify some of the changes that were made in the ordinance, the section specifically speaking to dogs. So dogs are allowed in the parks except for around the ball fields during games or practices. So dogs will still be allowed in the park. So just to clear that up. With the exception of service animals. Service animals are allowed anywhere in the park in accordance to ADA requirements. The second component was the time change for the park. So the verbiage says the public parks shall be open daily to the public during the hours of 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. unless otherwise authorized by the Director of Parks and Recreation. Some of those exceptions might be facility rentals. Sometimes some of our ball games do tend to go late. Any event like movie in the parks, any of our programs that we have advertised in the facility rentals will be the exception to that. But as far as actually being in the park without authority, that's closing at 9 a.m.
9 p.m.
Yes, ma'am. 9 p.m. 9 p.m.
And I did also speak with Ms. Jackson, and she said that we could get our social media department to put something out there just to let the residents know that we're just kind of clarifying some stuff and cleaning it up, and it's okay, we're still going to have fun in our parks.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Great.
thank you for that very much.
And we'll be updating the signage again, like I mentioned before. We'll update our signage throughout the parks and then work with our community relations department to get that information out.
Thank you very much for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I got the impression some of the social media out there was saying that we were restricting use of the space. In other words, we were not allowing things like dad and son playing catch or things like that. And I think there was some social media about that. So there was confusion there, which I thought what's being proposed was pretty clear. I think there's always somebody out there trying to misconstrue what was being.
Mr. Mr. Bass, we can,
I'm sorry, that is another point that Councilman Miller mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So we encourage specifically
Families,
baseball around in the baseball fields and away from the buildings. However, there are some places within the parks that has open space. So if you rent our pavilion at Hunter Park, for example, there's a large open space over by the creek going to the pond. We're okay with you throwing the baseball around there. However, we highly encourage citizens to utilize our baseball fields for those activities.
right, because if you're walking, or if you have
Right.
children playing on the playground equipment, you don't want a ball to hit them.
Correct, yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Bass. Any other comments? We appreciate you giving us clarity.
Yes, ma'am.
For the community. Thank you, Councilmember Watts and Miller. Any other comments or other business by council, elected body? Thank you so much. We'll keep on moving then with the agenda. Updates from our city staff. Our city attorney, Mr. Joel Dotson.
No business, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Judge Dotson. Staff attorney, Ms. Lynn Woodward.
No business, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Police Department, Captain Cannon.
No business, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Our Assistant City Manager, Ms. Chelsea Jackson. Look at you sitting in the big chair.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just one announcement. Our Community Relations Director, Jason Post, he will have some items going out on our social media regarding the ordinance that Mr. Bastide just explained, just to further push out so we can share out on all social media platforms.
Oh, thank you so much. And before we have comments from citizens and delegates, I did mention in the comments, and I talked to Councilman Estes because this is his hometown. I have been chosen 6 mayors from the United States Conference of Mayors to go to Tulane College and talk about building and development in your cities. And so it'd be me, mayor from Jackson, Mississippi, Kansas, Missouri, Kansas, and other places. But they're paying for everything. And so we leave on Monday, and I'll come back on Thursday. So I am really excited and solicit your prayers and good thoughts as I go and talk about our city and the things we're doing in the city of Douglasville.
Congratulations, Madam Mayor.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
Thank you. Okay, comments from citizens and delegates. If you sustain the meeting, you'd like to come forward and address us, we'd love to have you come and to the microphone, give us your name and address for the record, and you have 5 minutes to talk to us. Former Mayor Pro Tem, you don't have anything? Councilman, former Siegel? Just looking, okay. Do we have any other business to come before council tonight? If not, then this meeting is adjourned.